Well, here we are yet again, another weekend and another chapter in the tale of woe that is Lewis Hamilton and the glue factory. Back at the beginning of the year, I compared this move to the NFL. Hamilton to Ferrari would either be like Tom Brady going to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, or Aaron Rodgers switching his Green Bay cleats for those of the New York Jets. What a name for an American football team, by the way. Both quarterbacks were generational talents, but while Brady immediately solidified his status by winning the Super Bowl in 2021, Rodgers lasted a handful of plays before having a little sit-down, missed the remainder of the season, and since his return has been a shadow of his former self, leading to his separation from the team this past off-season. I could laugh at that, though I'm also a Jacksonville Jaguars fan. Anyway, point is, as Brady's GOAT status was ensured with that Super Bowl victory, Rodgers' stock has just fallen to the point where this period just manifests itself as a blotch in this guy's overall legacy, and now Lewis Hamilton looks to be going the same way. Before we get into all that though, I want to briefly thank the sponsor of this video, CyberGhost VPN. In case this is your first time watching a YouTube video, let me briefly explain how this works. A VPN is essential for protecting your digital privacy, and if you think you're already covered because you only browse in incognito mode, think again. Plenty of eyes are watching you every time you go online, and incognito mode is not going to cut it. I'll just give you a sec to get your existential crisis out the way. Your internet service provider, your school or work's IT department, even the websites you visit still know who you are and can track your every move. To put a stop to that privacy invasion then, what you need is CyberGhost VPN. Just turn on the VPN before you browse, and it encrypts and reroutes 100% of your traffic through CyberGhost secure servers, so no one will ever know about your online activity. Yes, even that video you were watching a couple of hours ago. It's all really simple, and CyberGhost have service in over 100 countries ready to cater for your every need. I should add, by changing your location, you can also unblock libraries of over 40 streaming platforms like Netflix, Amazon Prime, and many more. That can even open up alternative ways of watching motorsports all around the world. If you want to keep prying eyes at bay and be anonymous online then, now's the perfect time to get CyberGhost VPN, and by using the link in the description, you benefit from an 84% discount and also get 4 months for free. And since they have a 45-day money-back guarantee and access to 24/7 customer support, everything is risk-free for you. With over 38 million users worldwide, this is the most recommended VPN provider on the market. So check out the link in the description, get CyberGhost VPN, and start protecting your digital life today. Once again, cheers to them for sponsoring the video. Now back to Lewis Hamilton. When I covered this story just a couple of weeks ago, I stressed it was far too early to make any lasting conclusions on this guy's performance. We're just a third of the way through 2025, and the overall sample size of performances we have to go off is relatively small still. That can't be said about the inner workings of his Ferrari team, however. They've been delusional tosspots for years, and the 2025 Monaco Grand Prix was no different. This is a venue where qualifying is king. In the current era, where you start on Sunday is usually more or less where you finish, unless someone ahead of you decides they'd rather go for a swim in the harbour. What you don't want is to do all the hard work on Saturday only for a grid penalty to set you back the next day. Only they're pretty easy to get around the tight streets of the Principality, and arguably navigating your way around the Monaco walls is just as challenging as staying the out of the way of anyone else trying to do the same thing. It's not just the drivers then who have to be on it this weekend. The race team, in particular the engineers in their rear, need to be consistently on the lookout for faster cars behind, and that can be a problem when your race engineer appears to have the situational awareness of a lobotomized goldfish staring at his own reflection in a fucking teaspoon. Max Verstappen was never really at risk of ever dropping out of Q1, though the Dutchman wasn't taking any chances midway through the session. However, just a handful of seconds into his fast lap, he encountered the Ferrari of #blessed on the inside on the approach to Massenet. That caused the Dutchman to take avoiding action around the outside, compromising his racing line and in turn losing the rear of the car. That could easily have cost his entire race weekend, as Lewis proves here in FP3. While Verstappen bundled that back together, it did ruin the rest of his lap. The Dutchman quick to share his feelings, as Christian Horner reportedly went to distract Big Ben before said feelings were broadcast on the world feed. From Hamilton's perspective though, things looked a little different. The Briton was coming up the hill after Sainte Devote on the slow lap when race engineer Riccardo Adami hopped into his ear to warn him of Verstappen on a fast lap behind. Moments later, Adami was back to correct his previous statement. Max was in fact on the slow lap. If only Ferrari could use the same definition. With Hamilton no longer expecting the Dutchman to whiz by at 100 miles per hour, he chose not to move onto the marbles on the outside of the Massenet corner, which is where you'd expect to place the car with someone coming up quickly behind. And while this wasn't the worst case of Monaco impeding we've ever seen, and at the end of the day it didn't impact either's chances of progressing into the second session, penalising solely on consequences is something Twitter had been vocal about for years. So in the FIA's latest attempt to promote their favourite word, consistency, Hamilton was left with a 3-place grid drop for Sunday's Grand Prix. Now credit where credit's due here, Ferrari's choice of race strategy wasn't too bad at the end of the day. #Bless spent his first stint stuck behind the Aston Martin of Fernando Alonso and the V-Carb of Hadjar, but pit later to overcut both cars and get into the top 5, where he remained for the rest of the Grand Prix because welcome to Monaco. The other reason Lewis couldn't move any further up the order was because, having been stuck behind those cars in the beginning, by the time he re-emerged ahead after the pit stops, he'd lost 12 seconds to teammate Charles Leclerc. Without that Ferrari-induced penalty, the 44 car might have had a better shot at challenging for the podium. Granted, it's Monaco, so probably not, but it was unhelpful nonetheless. With Hamilton in no man's land for the remainder of this one then, only to watch the gap between himself and Leclerc grow more and more, that gave us several more pointed exchanges over the team radio. In the closing laps, Lewis asked for an update on the cars ahead, asking if they were, quote, still nearly a minute ahead. Adami's reply was as follows: Charles on medium and McLaren on hard, in 16, very close to each other fighting. In other words, not answering the fucking question. That was echoed, albeit slightly more politely, by Hamilton, with Adami eventually confirming the 48-second deficit to the leading group in front. The exchange would then continue once Hamilton crossed the finish line. Adami came over the radio first to say, quote, it's a P5, lost time in traffic, the rest we need to investigate, and pick up please. Just to clarify, that's in relation to spent tyre rubber, not a recreation of me trying to slide into someone's DMs. Hamilton replied by thanking the team for fixing the car, following him twitting it into the wall on Saturday morning, then said, quote, it's not been the easiest of weekends, but we live to fight another day. So, yeah. You may be expecting a little pick-me-up from the other end, though instead... Yeah, this is getting pretty awkward, isn't it? Are you upset with me or something? Came a follow-up from Hamilton, this receiving no reply as well. It appeared as though the Ferrari pit wall had fallen asleep. Though granted this was Monaco in fairness, you can't really blame them for that. So while P5 is probably the most Lewis could have extracted from the car, the whole ordeal doesn't paint the nicest of pictures behind the scenes, further evident by Hamilton's post-race interviews, where he appeared he wanted to drown himself in the Monaco harbour. I guess it was therefore time for good old Freddie V to come to the rescue then, and he was quick to throw out any thought of tension between the pair. Because when the driver is asking something between turn 1 and turn 3, we have to wait till the tunnel to reply, to avoid speaking with him during the corners. It's not that we are sleeping, it's not that we're having a beer on the pit wall, it's just because we have a section of the track where we agreed before to speak with him. Now, I mean, that's great, Fred, but completely misses the point. Not talking to a driver during the corners is fair enough, particularly around a track like Monaco, where so much mental strength is put into keeping it out of the walls, but that only really applies on a quick lap, and the only real case you can use for Sir's statement to defend was that one about the time gap towards the end of the race. The qualifying drama that caused all this in the first place had Hamilton on a slow lap anyway. Oh, sorry, Lewis, you were just in the corners. Couldn't really tell you about the 10 cars and the quali runs behind. Enjoy starting Sunday from f***ing France. Likewise, the exchange at the end of the race was at the end of the race. Thing was, if Ferrari really wanted an excuse, there was one right there for the taking. Just say radio is patchy around Monaco, because it is, and we regularly get dropouts due to the landscape and buildings blocking the signal to parts of the track. When Vasseur was appointed to replace Super Mario a few years ago, it seemed to pave the way for a new Ferrari, a new way of thinking, or just the idea of thinking in the first place. But over the last 12 months or so, we seem to be slipping back into old habits. And it just projects again this worrying picture for the future. Hamilton's pace is slowly but surely dropping off, and when he does occasionally have those flashes of speed, then the team aren't in the right position to take advantage of that. I do worry then, when we look back on this partnership, which at the way things are going will just be at the end of 2026, we'll be comparing it more to the Rogers situation. And what exactly will Hamilton's legacy look like then? Feel free to let me know what you think down in the comments below, and as I said, if you want a more in-depth analysis into the start of #Blessed journey with the Glue Factory, then go and check out this video, linked up in the top right corner, provided I've remembered to actually go and do that. Likewise, if you've enjoyed, be sure to go and hit that like button and get subscribed to the channel. We're aiming for 200,000 subscribers before the end of 2025, so I'd really appreciate your help in making that happen. And a final thank you once again to CyberGhost VPN for sponsoring the video. If you want to protect your data while you browse and get full access to all blocked content on the internet for just over $2 per month, all the relevant links are down in the description below if you'd like to find out more. Big up to the members and patrons as well, who get early access to this one, as well as an ever-growing library of exclusive content to sink your teeth into. If you'd like to further support me and the channel, all relevant links are down in the description below. Anyway, I'll be back soon with another video. Until then, have a good one.